Hello. In today's issue of Food, Nutrition, and Wellness, we're going to talk about no gym, no problem, just different ways that you can be physically active without having to sign up for a gym. Hi, this is Dan Remley. I'm an associate professor and field specialist in food, nutrition, wellness for Ohio State University Extension. And I'm going to talk to you today about how to be physically active without joining an expensive gym. And my presentation was developed by Misty Harmon. Today, we're going to review different types of exercise and the benefits of each type. And we're going to learn about how to incorporate physical activity and exercise into our daily routines. And finally, we're going to adapt exercise for your different fitness levels. So we'll talk about that as well. There's different types of exercise, and maybe you've heard of these different types. I don't really like to say exercise. I like to say physical activity, because when people hear exercise, they think about something that's painful. It's not very much fun. But physical activity, I think, has more of a positive meaning. Physical activity can be not just running 5 miles or running marathons. It can be doing housework. It's things that we do every day where we get our bodies moving. So we're going to go over each of these different types of physical activity. There are components of physical activity I want to address when you're setting goals. And really, if you're not physically active, or you are physically active but you want to be more physically active, the best way we can do that is to set goals. And when we set goals, we want to think about how often we want to do something, like how many days a week or how many times per day. We will also want to think about what types of physical activities we would like to do. And there's different intensities. So there's moderate physical activities, and then there's vigorous. And so with moderate physical activities, those are activities that get our heart rates going. They get our breathing, our breathing up, but they're the activities that we can have a conversation with. So you think about walking. You can walk and you can still have a conversation pretty easily. And even if you were to think of a scale of 0 to 10, 0 being sitting, and 10 being very vigorous, you're running sprints or marathons. A moderate activity is kind of like the five area. Vigorous activities are those activities that you get your breathing up and your heart rate up to a degree, to a point where it's a little bit more difficult to have a conversation. So, for example, jogging would be a vigorous activity. If you've ever jogged and try to have a conversation, it's a little bit more challenging. But we talk about the other components. So we're talking about intensity, frequency, but then duration is another component that we really want to think about when we're setting goals. And so this is how much time we do these activities every day, or 5 days a week, or whatever our goal is. And then finally, when it comes to especially anaerobic activities, if we're lifting weights, we want to think about how many repetitions. So if I'm doing curls, how I typically do about 8 to 12 repetitions of curls, and I do 3 sets of those. So that's another thing we may want to think about when we're setting physical activity goals. It does take, when we're setting goals, we want to set realistic goals. So when it comes to physical activity, and we're not active every day, and we want to set a goal, we want to remember some days are a little bit more challenging to be physically active than others. And so rather than say I'm going to be active 7 days a week, we may want to say, scale that back to 4 or 5 days a week. That's a little bit more of a realistic goal. So aerobic activities are activities where we have sort of a rhythmic, we use our large muscle groups, or muscles in our arms and our legs, in sort of a rhythmic manner for a sustained period of time. So example of aerobic activities could be swimming, walking, biking, running. Those are examples where we're really breathing in, getting a lot of oxygen. And as I said earlier, there's different types of these aerobic activities. There's moderate, there's vigorous. And the recommendation for moderate activities is 5 days a week or about 150 minutes or so of moderate activities. So again, those are activities like walking where we get our heart rate up, we get our breathing up, but we can still have the conversation. It could be something like housework. There's lots of different types of aerobic activities that are moderate. The other recommendation for vigorous is 75 minutes a week. And so those are activities where it's a little bit more difficult to have a conversation. If you get 300 minutes of moderate, you're going to get even more benefits of physical activity. We'll talk about what those benefits are. There's also anaerobic activities. And so these are activities that we're using our muscles and we're building muscle strength. We're adding power. We're adding endurance. We're building muscle mass. And these are activities like we don't use a whole lot of oxygen. They're very often they're short. You think of like a sprint versus a jog or something like that. We use kind of sometimes different muscle groups. But weightlifting is an example of an anaerobic activity. And usually when we talk about anaerobic activity, we're talking about doing repetitions and sets. So for example, when I lift weights, I'll do my legs and I'll do work my thighs, and I'll do 3 sets of about 12. When we do anaerobic activities, the main thing is that there's a couple of things with anaerobic activities. We want to space them out. So recommendation is about 2 to 3 times per week, but we don't want to do them every day because we need to give our muscles a break so that they can recover. And that's really very important. And anaerobic activity is really very important. We want to have that healthy muscle mass, and it can help prevent diseases like diabetes, for example. We'll talk more about that. But when we do anaerobic activities, we really want to focus on those major muscle groups like arms and legs, abdomen, shoulders. And then we want to think about, make sure we exercise antagonistic muscles. So for example, your bicep is right here on top of your arm. Your bicep is the opposing muscle underneath your arm. So, doing your bicep, but also going the other way and doing your tricep. And, you don't really need fancy equipment to do anaerobic activities. You can use soup cans or you can use rocks, but you definitely want to build in those anaerobic activities, maybe 2 to 3 times per week. And the recommendation is at least 2 per week, 2 days a week, and doing about 8 to 12 repetitions of whatever it is you're doing. So there's been some controversy about stretching, but stretching is really important to prevent muscle injuries. And I've talked to some experts who are experts in physical activity, and they recommend stretching when we exercise, but it should be at least afterwards. You can stretch before, but they stress that stretching afterwards is very important, and that can prevent injuries, prevent soreness, that type of thing. And also to stretch those muscle groups that you're using. So if you're a jogger or you're a walker, you can stretch out your muscles afterwards. You can stretch out your legs, you can do lunges and that type of thing. So stretching is also very important. And experts recommend to stretch at least 2 to 3 times per week. So balance is really important. And as we get older, and I just turned 50 a couple of days ago, so I need to start thinking about this. We lose many of the systems that enable us to balance, to walk on uneven surfaces. Balance is important, so we prevent falls, and that's as we get older. A lot of people do wind up in the hospital because they fall. So activities that our systems that help us balance include like our vision, our inner ear, our legs and muscle and joints. And so some things that we can do to help our balance and to prevent the breakdown of these balance systems might be activities like standing on one leg and then switching legs and standing on the other leg like a stork. And you can lean against like a chair or a sofa, but it's also important to balance, at least, practice these things 2 to 3 times per week as well. So when we think about activities, I think it's very important too, in physical activities, it's important when we set our goals. We want to think about activities that we enjoy too, or at least building in those activities that we enjoy. So I'm not crazy about weightlifting, but I do weightlift about 3 times per week. And I'll also go for jogs. Now, I don't mind them, but they're not things that I might look forward to. But I do some of these things, but then I play pickleball and I play tennis, and those are activities that I do really enjoy. But the weightlifting and the jogging, that helps me do the activities that I enjoy. I also like to hike as well. So think about activities that you really enjoy, but also think about activities that you can do that aren't too difficult for you. Because the idea is that if you become active and you change behavior, you if you're a sedentary person, you become an active person, it takes time. It takes time to develop habits, about 6 or more months. And so when you're setting those goals, make sure they're goals that you can sustain, for years, and not just, going crazy and being that weekend warrior and then getting hurt or getting frustrated because it's just too hard. There's many, many benefits of physical activity, many, many health benefits. And so exercise or physical activity can prevent, delay, or manage many diseases like heart disease, cardiovascular disease, that does include strokes, diabetes, but also diseases of the mind, such as dementia and Alzheimer's. I don't know if you knew this, but many cancers can be prevented by being physically active. So there's just a host of health problems that can be delayed. I mean, we all have to go someday, and we all get sick eventually. But we want to make sure that we have high quality of life, that we're able to be independent, especially as we age. And so, being physically active can help us achieve those types of things. If you have a disease like diabetes or another chronic illness, exercise is a great way to manage those things. These are just some of the benefits of physical activity. It increases our bone and muscle strength. It manages our weight, improves sex life. It can increase social ties. And so when I go play pickleball, which is like tennis, I get together with a group of people and we talk, and it's I've been kind of working on my basement. So it's one way that I connect with others is playing pickleball. So you can find groups that walk together in your neighborhood, and having a good social support network can also help you live a healthy, independent life as well. And it can prevent a lot of those same diseases. Actually, people think, well, if I'm more active, I'm not going to have as much energy. But actually, physical activity actually will boost your energy, and because it releases endorphins and moods that help us feel better and can help us feel like we have more energy. It can also improve our sleep too, so that we sleep better and we feel better and have more energy. And certainly it can improve our mood. And going for a hike, for example, getting outside, it does help us release all those endorphins that can help our mood and can help manage depression and things like that. As I said earlier, remaining active can help us be independent and live longer. Now, I think that I think that quality of life is more important than maybe quantity. I mean, people can live long, but not live well. And so, I think that's where physical activity can come in, help us be independent and having generally a high quality of life. And physical activity can be incorporated into our daily routine too. So it doesn't have to be something that we schedule. It can be things that we sort of substitute one behavior out for another. So instead of maybe taking your car to work, you can ride your bike or you can walk to work if you're able to do that. You can, I mean, doing housework or doing the dishes, you can incorporate physical activity into those types of routines. You can do lunges when you're putting dishes away, for example. Or you can just build in little incremental spurts of physical activity into your daily routine, such as the first thing in the morning, go for a 10-minute walk. Again, it's the recommendation is 150 minutes per week, but you can, you can accomplish this goal and you can meet this recommendation incrementally. You can be active at work if you have a standing desk, or you can, walk over to a coworker or schedule walking meetings. That's a great way to incorporate more physical activity at work. If you're working from home, go out for walks, take your dog for a walk, get outside a little bit, just in small increments. That can be really helpful to your productivity and your moods and that type of thing. After you pick up the kids, take them to the park. If you have younger kids, my kids are all teenagers, so it doesn't work as well that way. If you're taking your kid to practice or you're at a game, rather than sitting on the sideline, you can walk up down the sideline or walk around the track. Just don't try to build in that physical activity, substitute that sitting for different physical activities such as walking. So if you're fixing dinner, you're being physically active. You're getting food out. You're cooking. You're standing. But after dinner, after we eat, that's a great time to be active as well. Yeah, there's lots of different exercises you can do. Home walking is the obvious one if you have a good neighborhood for that. There are some gyms that are open too, like at schools. You can walk in. So look around in your community for safe spots. Circuit training is any type of you can set up your own circuit. There's a web link here that you can look at to learn about what circuit training actually is. But circuits are like little stations that you go to do different activities. And so somebody was describing a circuit that they set up in their living rooms where one circuit was lifting weights, 8 to 12 times for curls. And then they would jog in place for 10 minutes. But they kind of mix up those anaerobic activities like weights with the aerobic activities like jogging in place. And you could also incorporate stretching and that type of thing. So if you go to this link here, you can learn about circuit training and setting up a circuit even in your house. These are also some fun, creative ways to incorporate physical activity into your life. Having a dance party, playing some music and just dancing. That's a great way to be active. Playing with your kids, getting out and doing things with your kids, taking them for walks, going to the parks, playing soccer. But get active, especially if you have younger kids. And yes, doing chores is physical activity. Doing the laundry, vacuuming your house, that all counts. It all adds up. Those are all examples of moderate physical activity. Where it's in Ohio here, it's springtime, so almost time to plant those gardens. Garden is a wonderful physical activity. So you're out there and you're you're working in your garden. You're getting anaerobic activity. You're building your muscles, but you're also growing healthy food as well. So if you can have a garden or you can start a garden, that's a great way to be more physically active. There's also container gardens too. So OSU Extension has lots of information on starting gardens too. So just an idea. So these are just some different activities for the home that you can do. And you might want to look these up, but I do sit-ups actually. So that helps. I do weightlifting, but I also do sit-ups. So there's push-ups, there's jumping jacks, there's planks where you can lunge, all kinds of different physical activities. If you have a jump rope, that's another great activity as well. Going for hikes. So just think about what we've talked about and reflect about what you might like to do and how you might want to build in more physical activity into your lifestyle. Maybe you're active and you're already walking a lot, but you want to do some more strength training. That might be something that you build into your routines. I would say too that strength training is very, very important because it builds muscle mass, and muscles are very efficient at taking up glucose, and they don't need insulin, so it can help prevent diabetes, for example, and can prevent obesity and that type of thing. And stretching is very important. So if you're not stretching, try to work that into your routine as well. One thing with stretching that I wanted to make sure that I mentioned is that before you stretch, you might want to walk around the block or do some jumping jacks, just get your heart rate up, get warmed up. And I heard a really interesting analogy to this the other day. Stretching is almost like taffy. You think about your muscles being like taffy. If taffy is cold, it's hard to stretch. When it's warm, it stretches out. So if you're going to stretch, you want to make sure that you get a little bit of a warm up too. And that's why stretching is really good to do after you work out as well, because your muscles are already warmed up. So if you're not active, I talked about the importance of setting a goal. And I like to talk about SMART goals: specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely, time-bound. So, make sure there are things that you can do, you're confident that you can do, that it's a realistic goal. We encourage weekly goals. So saying I'm going to exercise 5 days a week, I'm going to go for a walk 5 days a week for 30 minutes a day. That's a very specific, measurable goal, but start slow. So if you're not active, setting a goal of 3 days a week, that might be a more realistic goal. And so one thing you could do is when you're thinking about setting a goal, you could think about a scale of 0 to 10, 0 being you're not confident that you could achieve that goal, 10 being extremely confident. Once you write that goal, you want to be 7 or above. You want to be very self-confident that you can achieve that goal. If you're not, then you really want to rethink your goal. But start off slow. You can always adjust your pace and gradually increase. And I really don't like the adage of no pain, no gain, because really if you're in pain and you're lifting weights or you're doing some other activity, your body's telling you that to slow down, to maybe lift less weights. You really shouldn't be in a lot of pain. You want a little bit of resistance, but not a lot. So on a scale of 1 to 10, 0 being no pain, 10 being excruciating pain, you want to be at about a 5. It should be, something that you're going to have a little bit of resistance, but it shouldn't be very painful at all. And then you want to gradually increase. So you can rethink your goals. Say you achieve your goal at 3 days a week of walking, then, maybe rethink that goal. Maybe you could do 4 and then 5, right? So the idea though is you want to build in a routine, a habit. That's the most important thing. You can always modify your movements. So building in different types of activities into your routine, as we talked about, maybe doing different types of things. And drinking water. Drinking water is really, really important. Drinking water will prevent like cramping, and you definitely don't want to be dehydrated. It will help you perform better, whatever it is you're doing, and it can prevent muscle injuries. And taking breaks is also very important as well. Again, it's not you don't have to have that sustain. It's really the incremental time that's important. Making sure that you have a good pair of shoes is important. For example, if you're going to walk, you don't want to get splinters, and you should have the proper gear. If you're going hiking, make sure you have a good pair of hiking boots. Ones that I have, I need that support on my ankles. So having the right gear can prevent me. Having the right types of hiking boots can help prevent an ankle sprain. And if you haven't been active, especially if you have a chronic disease like heart disease or have had heart disease, you do want to talk to your healthcare provider. If you have diabetes, for example, you always want to have a snack on hand to make sure you prevent a low blood sugar. So make sure you talk to your healthcare providers so that they can give some recommendations to prevent any problems down the road for you. Now, we live in societies and communities that are not very conducive to physical activity. For example, many of us live in areas that don't have sidewalks. And one thing we might want to think about too is getting active in our community to build sidewalks or to make our communities more healthy. So it might be opening up a school gymnasium for walking. So think about reaching out into your community, getting active in your community, learning about what's out there, for you and your family members to be more physically active. And then, sometimes we have to advocate for changes in our communities. So that's something to think about. I don't recommend laying in the middle of the road, but that's all. I think this person did not set a very reasonable goal, a realistic goal, and they petered out in the middle of the road here. So hopefully you can reflect on this and think about setting some goals. And if you're just a beginner, setting some very realistic goals. If you're a more advanced person that's very active, just trying to incorporate different types of physical activities into your routine. Thank you very much. Go Bucks.